Everyone hear me? Good. Perfect, perfect. Cool. Okay. Well, first things first, introduce myself. I'm Joshua Spivey. I am a professor at Frederick Community College in Frederick, Maryland. I am also a doctoral student at Morgan State University, where I am in the Urban Education Leadership Program. So if you could, in the chat, I just want to see who you are, what's your classification, what school are you from? Also, if you are involved in student leadership, what is your role as well? Can everyone see my slides? Okay, everybody introduced themselves already. First things first, we're talking about, excuse me, sorry, 1 second. So we're talking about your network equals your net worth. This is something big that you all are having to deal with, especially while you're in college. And for those that are transitioning out of college within this year or next year, this is something that you're gonna be dealing with a lot, is networking and how to network and how to effectively network as well. So first question I have here, and you all can feel free to respond in the chat, is what's the difference between personal networking versus professional networking? And then we'll go into it some more once I see some responses in the chat. Does anybody know the difference between personal networking versus professional networking? Okay, so Janae says it's not super formal. It doesn't have to be professional. It could be mentorship, leadership, and not career related. Yes, that's one that's what we're going to talk about. And also, if you think about it, that's the key word. It's less formal. So you're looking at family, friends, significant others. All those are your personal network. Now, can you use the two together? Can they intermingle? Yes. Sometimes a personal network could help you with a professional network. So say, for instance, you have a family member that might be involved in a career that you're interested in when you graduate. Right there is a professional network tie based on professional networking. Based on personal networking. Now, main question is, when can you personally network? You can network anywhere. It can be in the grocery store. It can be anywhere. I think the main thing is a lot of times people tend to be nervous about personal networking because is it too intrusive? Is it taboo, if you will, to reach out to people in that way? But sometimes that's how you get ahead. And people say it's not who you know, it's not what you know, but who you know. It's perfect right here. Now, this one's funny, but I believe this is really true. There's a thin line between being a network, being networking, and being a creep. Now, we all know what a creep is. So when it comes down to it, for one, understand the difference. Being persistent is okay. Being tenacious is okay. But there is a line that you can cross where you go too far. And I would say to when it becomes uncomfortable for you or for that person, that's when you're like, okay, let me scale back a little bit and try to find another way to approach this. Also, the main thing is let it be organic. Don't let it be something to where you are forcing yourself on someone or somebody that's forcing themselves on you. A lot of times, if you can feel that when you introduce yourself, somebody's like, I'm not really interested in learning more about you or networking, go to the next person. And that's okay to do that because that's how you get a network around you, is not just giving up on that person that may not want to connect with you. Some of the proper settings for personal networking, you can look at your circle of friends. You'd be surprised how much wealth is within your circle of friends when it comes to connections. Family functions. A lot of times, people that are in families don't realize the resources they can tap into until they do it. Social events. People are relaxed. They're kind of informal. Perfect time to reach out to people during that moment in time. And believe it or not, waiting in line. Some of my jobs that I received was from waiting in line, just talking to people. And sometimes it might just be like, oh, it's taking so long to stand in line. Those kind of things start the conversation to go into other things as well. Now we're getting into professional networking, right? So with professional networking, and also feel free, if you have any questions or comments, feel free to write in the chat as well. But for one, there's no real routine time to where it might look like that on campus. Me, of course, going to HBCU, you might network with somebody at 11 o'clock at night, just sitting on the promenade, sitting on your plot or wherever, and that might be an opportunity for you down the line, just because you afforded the opportunity to do that and you opening yourself up during those time frames. Number two, get involved. All of you all are involved, and you're going to reap the benefits from doing that. Being around people, being in different institutes like this one, or certain things that might be for kings and queens of campuses, or certain things might be for SGA presidents. Those things are opportunities for you to get out there and talk to people that you might want to have to mentor you. And another one that people tend not to jump into a lot is the Career Center. The Career Center has so many different opportunities that you can reach out to that people don't tap into a lot because, for one, they may not have a time, or two, to be honest, they may not know where it's at. I think it's a key thing to find out where the Career Center is, because a lot of times you may not be looking for a job at that moment in time, but somebody that might know you at the Career Center is like, perfect, I know this person, they're looking for something, here they go. For me, for instance, I had no aspirations of going to grad school. I was just going to get my bachelor's and just thank you for my degree and keep it moving. But then somebody reached out to me about a school in New York called the New School. And at first I thought it was a joke. I'm like, I never heard of a new school. It sounds fake. What's going on? But then when I looked it up, it's a real school and it's a very prominent school. And because that person reached out to me because I went to the Career Center and they knew my name, they seen my face, that's how opportunity was afforded for me. Now, how does this look when you're traveling? One of the main things is build an online presence, however that may be, whether that be Facebook, where it's kind of outdated, but Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, Twitter, all those things are how people can know you, see your work, see what you're doing before meeting you. So then you kind of have a calling card already before you jump out there, or you actually meet somebody. And again, don't be afraid to make these new connections. Believe it or not, everybody's nervous. And you have to understand that. And when you understand that, it kind of eases the issues for you because you're like, you know what? This person's nervous. I'm nervous. Let's be nervous together and let's try to maintain a network and try to connect. And with that in mind, maintaining your networks, it doesn't just stop at you get their contact information and you email them here or there, or you call them here and there. Maintain that because you don't want to get to the point where you might need a letter of recommendation. You might need a reference for a job and you reach out to them at that only moment. Because then it seems like you're reaching out to them on a stance of let me contact you when I need something. You want it to feel like I'm doing this for someone because it's a relationship that is already built and not because I'm the only one that they have. So you don't want to do that at all. Now, some examples of mentor professional networking. You have one-on-ones. One-on-ones is like the main one where people tend to deal with because you have a mentor to just one junior level person. So that's one that's seen as pretty normal. You have situational mentoring where it could be you might be on an assignment or you might be doing something specific for that time where someone could be mentoring you. So it's not a long lasting period of time when it comes to that. Developmental and career mentoring, that's a big one because you don't know unless you don't know. And what I mean by that is a lot of times people might think they have a great resume or they might do well in interviews until someone sits down with them and looks at it and says, okay, you can switch this up a little bit, you can fix this up, or those kind of things as well. Number 4, reverse mentoring. That to me is essential because I feel like when you're mentoring somebody that might even be younger than you, they can mentor you as well. And I think we tend not to look at that because we see as mentorship as sometimes as an authority thing. And it's really not. It's more of something where you're exchanging information, you're exchanging certain things. Group-based mentoring, that deals with more of if I'm a mentor and I have 5 or 6 mentors, 5 or 6 mentees, excuse me. And when it comes to that, I might be busy and I might have to sit there and talk to all of them at the same time. And that's okay, especially if they all have a certain need that they all have to cover at the same time. In peer-based mentorship, that's something that you can start now in your SGA, in your certain organizations or whatever, because at that moment in time, it helps you learn how to mentor as well. And feel free if you have any questions at all or comments. Now we're going to get into something else called conflict resolution. Now, the thing about conflict resolution is this, that it's part of mentorship. I mean, it's part of networking. Reason why I say that is because in building relationships, in networking, sometimes things may not always go right. And the question is, how do you navigate that? How do you address those things when they happen? And I have some suggestions for you. The first one is we're defining this conflict, okay? So it's just a disagreement between two parties, really, when it comes down to the end of the day. And those things happen. You have to understand that those things happen and you sometimes can't avoid it, unfortunately. And that's one of the things where when it does happen, you want to have some tools about how to navigate that. Now I have a question for you all. How does networking connect to conflict resolution? Again, how does networking connect to conflict resolution? And please answer in the chat for me. Let me pull up the question again so you all can see it. How does networking connect to conflict resolution? Okay. Well, while we're waiting, I'm going to continue on, but once I see something, we'll go back to that question as well. Looking at conflict, I believe there's 5 types of conflict, okay? So the first conflict that we're talking about is man versus self. When it comes down to that, you're thinking about your own inner thoughts. And sometimes those could be of doubt. Sometimes those could be of fear. All those different things come about. And the way networking is tied to that is you need those people around you to sometimes reassure you, sometimes to help you not overthink. Those kind of things are what you might need from someone as well. Okay, we have from Tanya, we have the more people you know, it allows you to have more availability for resources that help resolve conflict. Perfect. I was just about to talk about that. With your own internal conflict, with your own man versus self situation, those people can help you speak to your achievements, help you speak to what you can do well, to where that battle between you and yourself is not as much. The next one is man versus society. When it comes to man versus society, you're dealing with things that are expectations that people tend to put on you. So whether it be that you're from a certain area of your city, to where they're like, you know what, this person grew up in the hood, they can't succeed. Why should they succeed? And again, it's a different network now. You're dealing with people that you grew up with compared to people that you might be with in college. And for one, can them two parties connect together, or do you have to separate yourself and make sure that you're networking with both sides, if that makes sense at all? Ariana has helps with resources on how to handle conflict and different perspective on conflict and situations among others. Yes, I mean, we'll talk about that in a few, about how sometimes it's how you look at something. So the perspective of how a conflict could be. If you think about it, have you ever been mad about something, or you're really angry about something, and then somebody else talks to you about it, and you're like, it wasn't that serious after all? I think that's what we kind of deal with when it comes to that. The next conflict is man versus man. This is one of the most common conflicts. And based upon student leadership, you deal with this a lot. Not everyone's going to agree. I know when I was in student leadership, I did not agree with everybody's opinion or what they did for something. Perfect scenario. I'm dating myself when it comes to the time frame, but homecoming one year, we were supposed to have Rick Ross, Waka Flocka, Chrisette Michelle, and Gucci Man. So we're all ready for this. We're all ready for homecoming. 2 days prior to homecoming, we get a phone call from Chrisette Michelle's manager saying that she can't come because she had the stomach flu, some type of virus. So that happened. And then the day of the concert, Gucci's manager called us and said, Gucci can't come. So we're like, okay, well, can he come some other time down the line? She's like, well, he won't be coming for a while. So now we're intrigued and trying to figure out what's going on, and come find out that Gucci was locked up. So with him being incarcerated, we had to make a decision right then and there. For one, we tried to rush to get certain artists, and we had some artists in mind that we could have rushed, but then, and that was my frame, is let's get some artists in here at least. And we disagreed, and some people were like, well, let's wait and do another concert. I'm like, well, that's not a guarantee. And yes, we argued, but then we came to a understanding and a conclusion that let's not rush this thing. So I was in the wrong at that moment in time, and I had to be man enough about myself and an adult to be like, you know what, I was wrong in this. Let me listen to what they're saying. And due to somebody else telling me that was my network telling me, hey, Josh, you should just, think about it in this way. Give it a different perspective about how we should approach this. Number 4 in the types of conflict, man versus nature. Sometimes those things happen, right? So, for instance, for those that are in a sorority or fraternity, you're at homecoming. Everybody's waiting for you to come to homecoming. Everybody's coming to homecoming. Old heads are going to be there and everything of that nature. And it rains. That's nature right there. You can't control the weather. Now, how do you navigate that though? How do you navigate rain into homecoming? How would your network help you? This is a question I'm asking everybody, so feel free to respond. How would your network help you in that situation? Or if it's the step show or if it's the concert and it's raining outside and people are standing in line, how do you navigate that? How do you utilize that network to help you figure out what should you do in that situation? And feel free to respond as well. Network with staff that could give you access to different. Perfect. That's one. That's a huge one, Tanya. That's something that people. I know we use that. We utilize that. I would say a few years, and because we have 2 gyms, we allowed students to wait in another gym and then if students were walking to the next gym, we'd have people have umbrellas or something like that, so they would be covered instead of being, wet by the rain. And okay, one second, let me see. Having a network of different people allows for alternatives. Okay, sometimes leverage with different orgs and events. Yes, that's another one. A lot of times when you tend to have a certain issue, whether it even be money, collaborations work very well. Whether, say for instance, if we as the Kappas are doing an event and we may not have enough money or weather may have happened, we can work with the Qs and do something, or we can work with the Alphas, we can work with the Deltas or SGOs, or any other organization to get it worked out so we can both utilize our resources. And the 5th one is man versus supernatural. And that's a big one because for those that do believe in God, a lot of times it could be helpful when those certain conflicts happen. To where it's like, some people believe that they may have been called to be in leadership. I believe, in my belief, I was called to be in student leadership. I was called to help out students. I was called to be, as a professor, I was called to be those certain things. And I think what I believe that I usually deal with a lot is the battle between conflict number 1, which is man versus self, versus conflict number 5, which is man versus supernatural. A lot of times we might listen to ourselves, and even if our network is telling us, this is meant for you to do, this is meant for you to be Miss TSU, this is meant for you to be Mr. TSU. The supernatural even tell you it's meant for you to be these things, but sometimes you tend to still battle with yourself as well. And now we're talking about the short-term impact of conflict. So when it comes to short-term impact, I don't think people realize there is short-term impact, and one of them is mental health. We don't talk about it a lot as a people, but sometimes mental health, you can get sick based upon stress. Sometimes even your own network could stress you out. And when those things happen, you need to figure out what do you need to do to navigate that. And the second one, and the most important one to me, is a decrease in productivity. As student leaders, you all are not just leaders, but you are students. You have a caseload of work that you have to do. And some of you all are not just in student leadership, but you also are involved in a Greek organization. So you have 3 different ways that you're going and getting pulled away from. This is when you utilize your network. There's no need to have a conflict or an issue if you're utilizing your network correctly. For instance, if you're involved in all 3 things, and say, for instance, even if you're an RA, you need to figure out how can you utilize the people around you to help you out. If you have to be on call, but you have an event, you might have other line brothers or line sisters, or you might have other prophytes or neos that can help you with that event. And if you're an SGA, you have, you should have some kind of staff or some kind of people on your board that can help you out as well. So it's about how you utilize that network to get things done. Long-term impact on conflict, which is anything over a year, you're dealing with conflict escalation sometimes. You don't want to deal with that at all, because when you're doing conflict escalation, it could be pretty bad from the standpoint of you're dealing with arguments, you're dealing with things that's kind of like counterproductive, and you don't want to do that at all. Now, also, some good things about this is it can inspire creativity to solve problems. It can also improve future communication. Once somebody knows where your standpoint is on something, they might be able to come back to you down the line and be like, hey, you know what? This person said this, and I think it might work in this certain setting. In conflict resolution in college, right? So because everyone's in college here, what does that look like? What does conflict resolution look like in college? You know, first of all, understanding that there's a goal to this. It shouldn't just be you're arguing to arguing. So you utilize those networks that might, if it's two people, you might utilize another person to try to tie y'all two together. Also, be patient. It may not happen that same day. It may not happen the next day, but if you just be patient, it might be able to work down the line. One that I dealt with a lot, and it's something that I still deal with a lot of times, is forgive. Let it go. It's not that serious. Sometimes, most of the time, it's not that serious. I think people tend to not realize that as well. And also, the main thing is to adjust and understand. Make sure that you have a goal at the end of this, not just at the end of that, but also what's your goal going on forward after that. And also, for those that are going to the role, hopefully everyone's going to the workforce, what does conflict resolution look like in the workforce? And that's something totally different. Now you're looking at, can this hinder me going down the line? So my main thing would be talk to that person. People are all approachable. It's just how you do it. And especially somebody in your network, it should be a little bit easier to talk to them than someone else. And listen, God gave you 2 ears and 1 mouth. That means you should listen way more than you speak. And when you listen, and don't listen to try to respond, but listen and really comprehend, you'd be surprised you might be surprised what you learn during that situation. Okay, this is the time where I want you all to talk to me a little bit in the chat. Is, do you have any testimonials about when you dealt with conflict resolution, or if you're currently dealing with conflict resolution and how you dealt with it, or if you need help dealing with it now? And while I'm waiting for that to happen, I can talk about one on my own. I would say, in student leadership, okay, here's one. So it was Kappa Week on our campus, but it was also, I think it was Welcome Week as well. And it was hard for me as a member of my organization, but also being campus activities board president, to balance out both of those. And I think I tend to, yeah, I'll say I got angry at my line brothers, because I felt like, hey, I have this to do as campus activities board president. I need more help when it comes to Kappa Week. And those kind of things happen. And yes, you argue, but the thing about it is I felt like we argued, and it was kind of productive. So we had to come back to it the next day. But I believe the issue that what we should have done was been more proactive than reactive. Try to see which things you could have fixed before it went down, before things may have happened. And that would have been a great help, instead of just us going at it or being angry at each other at the moment in time. Looking to see if there's anything on the chat at all from anybody. I don't see anything yet. Okay. So this is activities, okay? All right, here's one. The biggest thing I struggle with is now. on the forgiveness aspect. Okay. That's, I believe, when it comes to that, Ariana, that's big for everybody. Forgiveness is one of them things where you tend to internalize things a lot of times. And if I may ask Ariana, what's your position at your institution? So I can kind of be specific about what you're doing in leadership as well. Now, this is an activity I have for you all, and it's more scenario based, if you will, and it's called the real life of student leadership, right? So this is one of them situations where it's, I'll give you scenarios, and you tend to respond how you would work with it. Okay. Okay. So Ariana asked about, does a person understand what they did wrong? I would say that's not for you to stress out about. The reason why I say it is because you can only do for you. You can only put out there how you felt, right? And once you put out there, it's the person's job to say, I'm sorry, or I didn't, or this was wrong because of this. A lot of times we stress out because we're like, hey, this person, I felt like this person didn't understand where I was coming from. Sometimes that happens. And do you harbor upon that, or do you understand that not everybody's going to get it? And if they don't get it, that's not on you to try to be like, hey, if they can't get it, let me push it out of them. Sometimes that can't happen. And if that happens, unfortunately, you guys sometimes just keep it moving or find somebody else that might do the job for them or can get the job done. But speaking of real life of student leadership, I have it in here as saying, is it a game or is it not? Because sometimes that's how it feels, to be honest with you. So the first scenario I have for you is this. And I need people to respond about what you would do, and we'll wrestle through this, okay? It is your RA, and two of your residents get in a fight. Your RD can't answer the phone because they're gone for the weekend. What do you do in that moment? Again, you have a RA, two of your residents get in a fight, and your RD is not available. What would you do in that moment in time? Feel free to respond in the chat. And mind you, it's conflict resolution, and also you have a network. So how would you utilize that? I'll give you some time to think about that. I'll put it in the chat as well so everyone can see it. Tanya says, I believe first step would be to separate the students, having one student in one building, and other student in another building until they're ready to discuss the situation. Okay, let me ask Tanya. So Tanya, thank you for that. I'm gonna ask you this then. How long would you allow them to be in different buildings? Because mind you, say for instance that there's no space in a building, then what would you do? And while waiting for the response, I have another question. Oh, here we go. Oh, perfect. I asked this question. Okay, here I'll ask the questions because I've seen this or have dealt with these before. I'm asked to serve as an RA, and when I had to perfect. Okay, that's a good one as well. Just waiting for the RD to come back, and then you talk about it then and there. And I think a lot of times, certain times you want to make sure it stays at the lowest level, and it seems like the lowest level would be the RD. Sometimes it might have to go up to Officer of Residential Life, unfortunately, but that's a good that's a good idea, Ariana. The next one is this: you are an SGA, and your friends. This happens all the time, so y'all can't say that it doesn't. Want to get into the concert or the step show for free, or your line sisters, line brothers want to get into the step show for free. The VP of student life might be around you. All these people might be around you. Leadership is around you. What do you do? Again, you have a friend or a line brother, line sister, family member that wants to get into the step show after party for free. You make Tanya says you make them pay. Okay, you maintain ethical regard. There you go. Right now, they gotta pay. I mean, it's one of them things to where it is. To me, it is what it is. They know that they have to pay, and hopefully, they don't get too angry at you because you chose to make them pay instead of them going in there for free. So everyone wants to be a favorite, and that's not. Thank you, Janae. Another thing. Once you do for one, they expect you to do for all. They expect, oh, Josh hooked me up with some tickets for the concert. Holla at him. Or Josh got me into the step show. Holla at him. Last thing you want to do is that revolving door of help me, help me, help me, help me, help me. Another one, and this actually happened to me. Your advisor, you all going to an event. You travel for the event. You all want to change. You all want to make sure that you all are going into the hotel or wherever it may be for an event ready, right? But your advisor's like, we need to just get in the rooms first and then change, right? Or then be okay. But your fear is because you might see certain student leaders there, you want to be ready already. So how would you navigate that? Would you tell your advisor, I want to put on something or look nice now? Or would you just let the advisor have it? Would you let them just like, okay, that's my advisor. Let them lead the way when it comes to that. And Tanya says, if they're truly your friend, you should not want to risk your leadership position to benefit. To listen to my advisor. So much. Perfect, because this happened to me too. So when you tend to go to HBCU King and Queens conferences and all those different things, that happens. We were at an event where we was going to Memphis, and we were coming all the way from Maryland, and we all had on basketball shorts, t-shirts, slip-ons. Girls had on their bonnets and everything of that nature. And we get out the van to go into the hotel, and we're thinking we're not gonna see anybody. We're the first ones there. We walk into the hotel. Every single king and queen of campus was there. And we felt so out of place because everybody's dressed up to the nine and have on these suits and dresses and everything like that. And we're looking like we just come out of bed. So, and I remember one of the kings looked us up and down like, who are y'all? Like, we look very, very, it was pretty embarrassing. But what happened was when we went to that room and we changed and came downstairs and did our introductions and, had to be like, greetings, I am, all those different things, we shut it down. So it's one of the things where, yes, we looked bummy at the beginning. Yes, we looked pretty rough. But when we had to turn on, we turned it on. And Janae says, it's always looking bummy. You see everybody in their mama. Yes. And we saw everybody, their mama, their daddy, their cousins, all that. Okay. So as we're concluding, I'm an open book. So feel free to ask me any questions, comments, and we can go from there, okay? And I'll try to answer them as truthful as I can and as easy as I can. It can be about leadership. It can be about my career path. It can be anything. Need advice, anything of that nature. What's been my biggest lesson in regard to my personal network? Okay, it changes. That's the main thing I learned in my years. Certain people that came with you can't always go with you. That's one of the biggest pieces of advice I learned and received is not everybody is going to be going to the same pathway that you want to go. You have to realize, you have to learn how to realize that